we need a vision statement in our life because moving forward is hard. Standing still is easy. If you want to keep the same life, the same job, the same friends, the same daily devotional, the same relationship with Jesus, that's easy. You want to move forward in any area of your life, losing weight, developing new friendships, new hobbies, new job, new relationship with God, a new sense of God in your life. That's hard. And what I want to say is, even a little bit of vision helps a lot to make it easier. So I actually learned that in 1997. I was heading to Lake Havasu as a youth pastor. The kids had all gone ahead, and they were there, and I had stayed behind to pick up one of our youth leaders, and we were going to go together, and we got a late start, and so by the time we got to Barstow, right, it was 11 o'clock at night. We had almost 200 miles to go, so we took off from Barstow, and in Barstow, we got food, and I remember that we were saying that we were going to get gas. And I remembered that we said we were going to get gas about 70 miles outside of Barstow because the red light on the worker's car came on, and it said we only had a gallon left. And so I didn't want to make her nervous, and so I just very casually said, man, this is a great car. About how much miles to the gallon do you get? And she said, I get probably 20. Why do you ask? I said, well, just because I noticed that your light came on, and that means we have about a gallon, and we have about 90 miles to go to get to Lake Havasu. And she freaked out, and she quick grabbed her cell phone. Of course, no cell coverage anywhere between Barstow and Lake Havasu. And I said, well, maybe we should roll down our windows and let's drive a little slower. And, we kind of, with a lot of fear and trepidation, we kept going. 10 miles we got to, and we found a rest stop, which was awesome. So we pull into the rest stop. No cars there but ours because it's now about midnight. And she goes to the restroom. I go to the phone booth to look up the phone book to see if I could find a tow truck. And interestingly enough, there of all the chairs and all the seats that any rest stop has, all were empty but one. And it was the one right next to the phone booth. And there was a man sitting there at midnight with an empty parking lot. And the best way I can describe him is that he was an 1800s prospector. I mean, the weathered hat, the frizzled hair coming down into this full gray beard, and his face was all wrinkled. And he had exactly the kind of outfit you would expect. You literally were looking around for a mule, right? And I, being the gregarious, outgoing pastor that I am, I walked wide around him, made no eye contact, and ignored him completely. But as I got the phone book open, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's 90 miles. It's going to be an hour and a half before anybody gets here, and then we have to drive an hour and a half back. It's going to be dawn before we get anywhere. So I asked the man, I said, listen, I can't imagine you would ever need a gas station and for you and your mule. In my head, I said that. To him, I said, do you have any idea if there's a gas station anywhere nearby on the way up? He says, oh, yes, absolutely, no problem. There's one just 5 miles up the road, up the incline, up the rise, just a little bit. Oh. Okay, thanks. So I go back to the car, and the youth leader says, hey, what'd that old guy say? I said, well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is he says there's a gas station just 5 miles ahead over the rise. And she said, oh, that's great news. What could be the bad news? I said, do you see a rise? You see, it's pitch black in the desert. If there's a gas station 25 miles away. We ought to see some light, right? There's no light. There's no rise. There's no nothing. And I'm telling you, we sat there and deliberated. It was hard. Do we go? Do we not? Do we make a phone call to somebody else in Havasu? Do we wait? Do we see if anybody else drives up? Do we even dare to go back to the phone now that the guy gave us the instructions? It was hard decision. And finally, the youth leader, of course, it's the youth leader who says, well, maybe we should trust God. And I'm like, yeah, I knew that, but I was waiting for you to come to that conclusion. So she says, well, I think we should go. And I said, I just want to clarify. We've gone 10 miles. He says it's 5 miles. If we get there and there's nothing there, if we can get across the desert, between the two directions, we might run out of gas in the middle of the desert before we got back. So are we still going? And she says, yeah, I think we need to go. So off we went. We checked the odometer. At the 1 mile mark, nothing. 2, 3, 4 miles, nothing. Pitch black. At 4.5 miles, nothing. Both of us literally are wishing we could turn around and go back, and there's no way to get across the divide. So we 4 3/4 miles, the car starts to rise. Oh, and we get to the top of the rise, and when you top the rise, there is one of the largest truck stops you could ever imagine. And two things. One, like, oh, and are you serious? How can that be? Is this a mirage? Well, it turns out that this was in 1997. In 1986, Arizona passed a light pollution law that said that all outside light fixtures have to be completely enclosed and all light pointing down, no light pointing up. And the combination of all light pointing down and a slight rise in front of it meant there was no light coming from this whole thing, pitch black. Okay, here's the moral of that whole long story. First of all, it's deeply meaningful to me still to this day, but the point is, it would have been infinitely easier, 1,000 times easier for us to pull off back onto the highway if we had just seen one glimpse of light. If there had been one sign that said gas 5 miles ahead. If there had been anything, it would have been so much easier. A little bit of vision makes moving forward so much easier. And side note, I am convinced to this day that prospector was a guardian angel sent there to give us the good news. You know how I know that? Because any normal person would have said, and hey, don't worry about the fact that you can't see it. It's Arizona light law. You'll get there, don't worry. Angels are like, well, he's going to have to trust God on this one.